We'll call to order the Finance Committee meeting of the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority. I would mention the date, but I don't have it in my
The
head.
28th.
March 28th. And our business today is to review the statement of financial position and the statement of expenses and revenue. And I don't think I have any questions before we ask Patty Nisko to proceed with her observations on this. We'll ask Patty, ask you to go ahead if you would.
Thank you. We'll start with the statement of financial position, or the balance sheet, as it's also called. You will see that our accounts receivable are at 306. So of that, we have approximately 88.5% of the open AR is either current or 1 to 30 days. I will discuss with you later one instance that is helping to bring that just a little bit below 90%. Our inventories will be adjusted. That is your fuel inventory. Those are only adjusted once a year, so they will be adjusted for March 31st. Our fixed assets stay relatively the same. As we haven't received some of this equipment from the Chrissy grant, there hasn't been much going into our assets yet. Our construction in progress, you can see on page 2 who the top 4 vendors are for the construction in progress. We will close the Tiger grant in accordance with year end, or in conjunction with year end. So that will drastically reduce the amount that's in the construction in progress. The airport entitlement grant, we're waiting for one thing to be completed, and I'm thinking that what we will do is move the majority of that to fixed assets. The only thing that's still outstanding is training, and it's only $5,000. So the asset itself should be able to be moved for year end, which will again bring down the construction in progress.
Mm-hmm.
If we go to our accounts payable, we have our retirement. In March, $150,000 was paid on the retirement. So that has brought it down almost in half, which won't show up here as this is February. The Tiger Bridge repair, there's very little left in payables there. If you look on page 2 again, you can see the breakdown of the majority of the regular payables. The e-transit maintenance fees, we have to make a dent in that. That is something that just continues to grow. Our law firm was paid almost half of what we owe them in March. Baseline King is waiting for FAA acceptance of the work they did on the project, and then we can pay that. And the Excellus bill was paid in March. So there's very little that is of large value still left in accounts payable. Our other general liabilities, the $167,000 is our liability for retirement and security deposits. That will be adjusted for year end. It appears that we have items that have been paid back to tenants when they've left that hasn't come off of the liability. So we will be adjusting that for year end. I believe it might, the 164 security deposits might be able to get down to about 130. So we'll be able to clean that up for year end.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions on the statement of financial position?
Patty, does the authorities software produce a regular statement of sources and uses of funds?
I honestly don't know if that's an option. It should be an option.
Mhm. If it were available, I think it would be of interest to me to look at. And more importantly, probably as we reach that part of the year when we're planning a budget, I'd like to think about what the implications are on sources and uses of
Mhm.
funds. I don't want to create another new report that has to be done.
Oh, no.
Generated manually.
No, we should be able to find that
Yeah,
in the program itself.
Chris, have you ever looked at our account with our vendors and like a monthly accounts payable? It's alphabetized. The reason I say that is when you look at that, it clicks off some things that you might not, and the same goes for me. When I look at it, I go, oh, things that you might have, you forget about, or you don't realize how our money's being spent.
Mhm.
Just, we take some of it for granted, but I would suggest maybe sometime it wouldn't hurt to look at, wouldn't you say?
The checkbook ledger, basically.
Right.
We were getting that. Yeah, we used to get that. We stopped once we got way better
But-
reporting.
Yeah, I think that these are, for a while, we just had
That checkbook ledger was.
It was nice, but I
revealing.
can also,
It did a lot
yeah,
to us.
and not revealing.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where I'm going with that, is that the more immersed you're in that part of it,
Mhm. Yes.
I'm not worried now, but I'm just saying, it sometimes helps you just understand where, you may see a big payment and then have a question, and when what that's all about, it may help. Do you think that's
I mean, we can run the checkbook register anytime you'd like to see it. Just
I think sometime that I'll make it a point to come in sometime and perhaps we could take a look at it.
Mhm.
But the kind of thing that had occurred to me that made me interested was that I knew that sometimes, for instance, on this year, we may have some sale of property that'll generate some income, which won't be a predictably recurring
Mhm.
source of revenue. And sometimes your sources of revenue are things like, we had really good collections on our accounts receivable, and so we've nibbled down the accounts receivable, and that's a source of revenue. But again, you're not going to be able to do that next year.
Right.
And so those are the kinds of things that I thought might have some implications on planning. And my guess would be that there's nothing in there that's going to really throw off our budget planning. But it's, I have found those interesting in the past and sometimes useful.
I think too, though, it'll give you a deeper understanding of, not, sometimes it may be superficial, but once you get below that, you have a better feel or are more comfortable with things, but also it might kick off things that we know about, but we can explain,
Yes.
but it'll make you feel better about, kind of how you look at the whole budget.
Great.
But and the reason I'm sorry, Patty, but just brought that up just with your kind of what you and I talked about the last finance committee meeting.
Yep.
Yep. And keep going in that direction.
Well, as our sources and uses is also good at this time of year because the year's almost over and we will be going into the audit.
Yes.
We have a date. They will be showing up on May 16th, as they did last year, just about that same time. So we'll be in preparation for the audit. So these types of things will become very important.
Yep. And do you feel pretty good about the material that you have put together and whether you'll have access to it and so forth? That's
Yeah.
great. Having been here now for 12 months, helps a lot to be able to find this stuff, doesn't it?
It's amazing how far we've come.
Yeah. I'm
And
sure.
our new senior accountant has been wonderful.
Great.
And our accounting supervisor has always been an excellent resource.
Mhm.
So
I'm done with my questions. So unless you have questions, gentlemen, would you take us through the budget going forward?
as we just mentioned, we are close to the end of the year. We only have March left. So these this income statement is pretty much what will be for the end of the year. We've been lucky in our bridge revenue this year. Our total income did supersede what we thought it would. Again, we are conservative for the next fiscal year, but I think it's better to be a little bit more conservative right now. So we have done well. Airport revenue is up a little bit. We're grateful for that in light of the situation in which we find ourselves right now, that we've had some decent revenue come through. The fuel sales are at 330. That's double or more than double what we had anticipated. And if you go down to the airport expense, you will see that we've spent approximately $215,000 to buy the fuel. So the difference of that has gone toward our revenue. The Commerce Park has been healthy. We haven't missed any tenants except one. The port revenue has been extremely good this year with salt, and our railroad revenue was about on target, and the wind turbine did not occur in the 21-22 fiscal year.
When you see the red there, we're under budgeted for, what is that? Is that just a timing thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Most of the port revenue we assume will happen during certain months, and then we assume it won't happen in other months, especially March, because the seaway isn't open. So we assume, and we must have assumed we would make a little bit more than we did.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. Our expenses are as they are. If you look at the employee benefits for the bridge, they are under budget. But if you go down to the industrial park employee benefits, you'll see that they are over budget. We did not account for the portion of retirement for the person's income who has been doing the billing and whatnot for the leases. So we didn't put that down there. If you move that back up, our benefits would still be a little under budget, but more in line. The maintenance expense, we took over the man lift rental from the airport to work on the exterior of this building. Plus, we've just had a few other expenses. Our utility expenses came in under budget, which was good considering the winter we've had. Our general expenses were over budget. Approximately 20,000 of that was to advertise for all the positions that we've had this year. We had a janitor utility position go up. We had the senior accountant. We had the director of economic development.
Well worth it, sorry.
And I believe there was one other position that we filled. The poor boy just got here and now he wants to. And our insurance, I don't think we anticipated quite what the new rates were going to be, so that added to that.
That's on the general.
Yes. Our airport expenses, the salary, as we've stated before, we had been budgeted to be down one man, which did not happen. And we had to have overlap for the scheduling. When the new fellow came on board, he wasn't allowed to be on his own until he gained some of his certifications.
Mhm.
The maintenance expenses, the biggest one that we had was the K&T striping had not made it into the budget. And that was almost $50,000 of that overage. The fuel sales offset the income up above. Our general expenses are not that bad. I went back, as we get toward the end of the year, you can really figure out that something might be wrong. And the budget number should be approximately $456,000, not $256,000. When we took out the interest and legal expenses, there was a mistake in the calculation. So it underrepresented what was left in the budget. But there are still things that have brought the general expenses over budget. The Stephen Baldwin is approximately $28,000 that we had not budgeted. We have to move a McFarland Johnson invoice for year end, which was approximately $37,000. And our Leo is approximately $34,000 over budget. Industrial park, we mentioned before that the retirement did not come down into the budgeted amount. Our marine terminal, our salaries have leveled off. Our health and welfare, however, for the ILA had been put in with the wind turbine, and without a wind turbine, it's coming here for the extra salt work that we've had to have. Our maintenance expenses are a number of different things that have attributed to this. Our tarp disposal, which we do get back from the salt companies, but we still have to show the expense of getting rid of them. The equipment, the extra rentals on equipment because of the amount of salt we've had this year. We've had to rent a dump truck.
We get reimbursed for those too.
We get reimbursed for these, but they are expenses that will show up. Any questions on that? And of course, there are no wind turbine expenses because there was no wind turbine project. Both sides.
How significant do you think the February bridge traffic was? It looks as if it must have been quite strong.
Yeah, let's see, February's was pretty much same. The truck traffic was down a little bit, and then auto was better than January, but it was still it kind of reflected the way things were going. The truck traffic was down, I think, was due to all of the issues in Canada. And then also in January, they instituted the vaccination for truckers. So it did take a hit with that, but it seems like it's coming back. But I haven't seen any update of March's numbers so far.
What is in that February number?
Yeah, and the revenue number.
Is the PPP was forgiven.
Oh,
so it could now be income and not just sitting
that
out
didn't
there.
reflect traffic on.
No, it didn't.
I
forgot to mention that. Yes.
I was thinking the revenue number was telling me something big,
different, right?
No, the auditors,
Good
auditors
catch,
would not allow us to recognize the PPP as revenue until it was forgiven by Small Business Administration.
Sure.
And it has been.
Yep. I'm curious, Patty, to better understand the liability of long-term debt, current portion of long-term debt. What period is covered when we see a number there for long-term debt?
The current portion, once a year, usually in March, and that will happen in March. You'll notice this number will go way up. What we do is we take the long-term debt and we look at what we've paid out this year, and we assume if we're paying $1,000 a month on principal, then we will move $12,000 out of the long-term debt into the current portion of long-term debt.
And then every month Do you reduce it by what you pay it,
Mhm.
but you don't increase the obligation?
No,
Yeah.
no.
Okay,
And the long-term debt, which you'll see on the second page of the balance sheet, only changes once a year. That will remain the number that it's at. And we just reduce the current portion of long-term debt.
got it. I have to check this every 18 months. Any other questions?
No. You asked, well, I was wondering where the bridge revenue was going. Boy, things are really rough.
No, I wish they were.
Well, Pat asked me how long the meeting was going to be today, and I said, there's not much that's controversial in that statement. And it's pretty straightforward.
Thank you.
And would that be your assessment also?
Up until this point. If you're done with everything else,
I am done.
I would like to ask for a quick executive session regarding contract,
Two.
I'm sorry, so you had a need to.
Yes.
In that case,
I would move then, I guess. Or you move, so I will second.
and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There's a question from the.
Did you say there is one, or,
Okay.
and what would that question be?
Go ahead, Randy.
What's the airline that you're negotiating with or you're applying for the alternative AES?
That's a facilities committee question. I can answer that for you later, Andy.
Okay,
But-
I'll give you a call.
Yeah, right after, or I can call you. I should be out of here in 5 or 10 minutes. and
Sounds
I'll
good,
call
thank
you
you.
and I can answer that, but that's really a facilities committee question.
Right on. Yeah, I just didn't get a chance to ask before. Okay, yeah, I'll wait for you to call. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, take care, everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
So who moved it?
I did.
Sam made the motion, Dave seconded it, and all in favor. No decisions were made, no action taken. Time for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.